Get out of the pool. Those were the first words my daughter, Cambria Hale, hurled across the courtyard on the day she was supposed to begin a new life. She stood at the edge of the water in her silk wedding gown, her voice slicing through the music and the clinking glasses. I felt every eye turn toward me as if I had committed some kind of crime by standing where I stood. I said, "Get out." Now, her face was tight, her hands shaking. Not from fear, but from anger, the kind she had learned to sharpen over the years. I lifted my arms out of the water, the lace shrug on my shoulders clinging heavy and cold. Guests whispered behind their perfect smiles. A young server paused mid-step, unsure if he should offer help or pretend not to see me. I climbed the pool steps slowly, water trailing down my dress and pooling around my feet. Cambria refused to look at me again. She turned back to her officiant as if brushing a stain off her ceremony. Elias, her groom, stood frozen. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, but knew she would not let him. I wrapped my damp shawl around myself and walked past the rows of white chairs, past the Charleston socialites who had always adored Cambria's shine, and past the cousins who could not meet my eyes. The humiliation clung tighter than the wet dress. I did not speak. I did not cry. I simply left. That night, the wind rattled the windows of my small rental suite. My clothes hung near the heater, still smelling faintly of chlorine and flowers. I lay awake replaying her voice, wondering when my daughter had started treating me like a blemish she needed to hide. The next morning, my phone rang. Realtor Donna Pruitt sounded apologetic as she said, "Ma'am, the beach house owner is ending your lease." I thanked her calmly. I heard her hesitate, waiting for panic. But there was none. Everyone thought I was about to lose my home. No one knew the truth yet. The owner she spoke of was me. I sat on the edge of my bed after Donna's call, the phone still warm in my hand. The humiliation from the wedding was fresh, but it was not new. It was only the loudest version of something that had been whispering through my life for decades. Cambria had not always looked at me the way she did yesterday. When she was little, she used to cling to my skirt as we walked through the narrow streets of Charleston's historic district. She would point at the horse-drawn carriages and ask if someday we could ride one. I always told her, "One day, sweetheart." And she believed me. But things changed when she started school at St. Bridget Academy. The children there arrived in polished shoes and starched uniforms, their mothers stepping out of cars that cost more than our entire house. I showed up in my faded cotton dress, holding the lunchbox I had decorated with stickers. Cambria's smile faltered when she saw me. One afternoon, she pulled me aside and whispered, "Next time, could you maybe wear something nicer? People notice." Her small voice trembled. But the message landed harder than she knew. I nodded, pretending it was fine. After Alan died, her father, my anchor, something inside her tightened. He had been the soft place for both of us. He worked long hours as a carpenter, but he always came home with sawdust in his hair and patience in his voice. When we lost him, Cambria seemed to step into a world that demanded she keep climbing, no matter who she had to step over. Years later, before her middle school banquet, she approached me again. "Mom," she said carefully, "maybe you can sit this one out. The parents, they dress a certain way." Her eyes begged me to understand. I remember swallowing the hurt so she would not see it. Little by little, her requests grew into instructions. Then instructions grew into judgments. By the time she reached adulthood, she had mastered the art of shining brightest when I was standing in the shade she pushed me into, and somehow, I kept letting her. After the wedding disaster, I sat at my small kitchen table and opened the drawer where I kept old documents. The deed to the Folly Beach house rested on top, the paper softened with age but still clear. I bought that house after Alan died, using the life insurance he left behind and the savings we had built over almost 4 decades together. It was meant to be a place where I could breathe again, somewhere quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. When I purchased it, I asked the property management company to list me in their system as both the owner and the tenant. It was a strange request, and the manager blinked at me before agreeing. I told him it was for privacy. He did not need to know it was also to protect the house from Cambria's expectations. Even then, I knew she would use anything she could to prove she was rising in the world. For years, Cambria bragged about the house to her friends. "My landlord is very high-end," she would say, flipping her hair. "He adores my punctuality." She had no idea that her so-called landlord was the same woman who had packed her lunches with handwritten notes. I never corrected her. I thought letting her feel proud was a type of love. Whenever she asked to use the house for weekends, I agreed. She always offered to pay, and I always reduced the amount to something small, barely a fraction of what the place was worth. She never questioned why it was so cheap. She simply assumed she deserved it. The parties started later, elegant gatherings. She called them. I would find out afterward through distant relatives or a stray photo online. She never asked if the furniture could handle dozens of people or if the neighbors complained about noise. She treated the house like a stage and herself like the star. I kept giving. I kept stepping aside. And somewhere in all those quiet concessions, I helped build the pedestal she now used to look down on me. Donna Pruitt's voice still echoed in my ear long after the call ended. "The owner is ending your lease." I could almost hear the sympathy she expected me to need. I set the phone down and took a long breath, letting the quiet of my kitchen settle around me. Then I opened my email. Proceed. I typed to the property management team. "I approve as the owner." The cursor blinked for a moment before I pressed send. It felt like pressing a switch inside myself, small, quiet, final. Within minutes, a new email appeared. This time from Mr. Callahan at the Homeowners Association. He cleared his throat before speaking when I answered. "Mrs. Hale, I wanted to inform you personally," he said. "We received multiple noise complaints during the wedding event. Loud music, fireworks, traffic blocking driveways. The board will be issuing fines." I hesitated only so he would not hear the bitterness behind my tongue. "Send everything directly to me," I replied. "I will handle it." He paused. "Cambria told the board you were the tenant on record." "I am the owner," I said. "Send the documents." After we hung up, my phone vibrated again, this time with messages. A cousin, a neighbor, a woman I barely remembered from the ceremony. I should have stepped in. "I am so sorry for what she did. No one deserved to be treated that way." They flooded in, one after another, apologies wrapped in guilt. None of them had spoken the day before, not when I stood dripping beneath that Charleston sun. But now their regret arrived like a tide finally reaching shore. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, because I finally understood something. Whatever I said next would define what happened from here. And today, silence felt stronger than any explanation I could offer. By late afternoon, Charleston had already begun turning my daughter's wedding into a story told over porch rails and lunch tables. I heard it in the way neighbors paused before greeting me, their eyes flicking with recognition. People in this city did not need invitations to speak. They needed only the scent of a scandal. My phone buzzed again, another message meant to sound supportive. "Cambria must be so embarrassed. People are talking. She should not have spoken to you like that." I read each one, then set my phone face down on the counter. Just as I reached for the kettle, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Elias stood there. His tie was gone, his sleeves rolled up, and he looked like he had not slept since the ceremony. "Mrs. Hale, can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside without a word. He sank into the chair across from me, elbows on his knees. "I owe you an apology," he began. What Cambria did, it was not right. I tried to talk to her last night, but she said everyone was exaggerating. I folded my hands in my lap. She has always believed that appearance matters more than truth. He nodded slowly. That house, your beach house, she told everyone. It belonged to some elite landlord. She never said it was you. I know, I said. His eyes widened. She also told me she had been paying the rent on time. But Donna called me a month ago. She said Cambria was behind by 3 payments. I let the words settle between us. Elias scrubbed his face with both hands. I am sorry, he whispered, for how she treated you. For how she has been lying. I did not see it. I leaned back, steadying myself. You see it now, I said quietly. He lifted his gaze. The reality of what he had married finally beginning to surface. And outside, the city kept talking, its whispers moving faster than the tide rolling in from the harbor. I arrived at the Charleston Municipal Building 10 minutes early. The hallways humming with low conversation and the shuffle of papers. The hearing room was small, one long table for the complainant, one for the respondent, and a raised desk where the officer would sit. I chose my seat quietly, laying my folder of documents in front of me. Cambria walked in moments later, heels clicking like a warning. She wore a fitted ivory suit, her chin high, her expression rehearsed. Reese Fowler, her attorney, followed behind her, carrying a leather briefcase and the smug confidence of someone who believed he had already won. Mom, Cambria said, not with affection, but accusation. I cannot believe you made this necessary. I kept my hands folded. You requested the hearing. Reese stepped forward. Mrs. Hale, my client claims you're retaliating against her by forcing an early lease termination. We intend to show that your behavior at the wedding created a hostile environment. The hearing officer entered, motioning us to sit. We will begin. Reese started immediately. My client was hosting a private wedding event when Mrs. Hale disrupted the ceremony, entered the pool without permission, and caused a scene in front of over 50 witnesses. Cambria nodded dramatically. She embarrassed me. I had to remove her for the sake of my guests. I stayed silent until the officer turned to me. Mrs. Hale, your response, I entered the pool, I said, because my granddaughter slipped, and I went in to help her. My daughter shouted at me in front of the guests, but this hearing isn't about the wedding. It is about the property. Reese scoffed. Exactly. Mrs. Hale is the tenant. She has no right to, the officer raised a hand. According to the public record on file, she flipped a page. Marjorie Hale is the listed property owner. The room went still. Cambria stared at me, eyes wide, lips parting in disbelief. I opened my folder, slid the original deed across the table, and placed it gently in front of her attorney. No gloating, no raised voice, just truth, laid bare on paper. Cambria's breath hitched as she looked at the name she had overlooked for years, and for the first time, she had nothing left to say. The hearing ended with a single sentence from the officer. The complaint is dismissed. The lease termination will remain in effect. No dramatic gavel, no raised voices, just a quiet conclusion that left Cambria sinking in her chair. Reese Fowler closed his briefcase without meeting her eyes. Outside the room, Cambria tried to regain her composure. This is not fair, she snapped. You tricked me. I told the truth. I said, you built the rest around your assumptions. She looked ready to argue again, but Elias approached. His expression was tight, tired. Cambria, let's go, he said softly. She jerked away from his touch, but he didn't try a second time. By the next morning, consequences began landing one after another. Mr. Callahan from the Homeowners Association called first. Mrs. Hale, we have finalized the penalties. Multiple violations from the wedding noise, traffic obstruction, unauthorized pyrotechnics. The fines will be issued under the renter's profile. Send them directly to her, I replied. An hour later, the event registry that managed Charleston's premier wedding venues sent an email addressed to her. They were suspending her booking privileges indefinitely due to unprofessional conduct and guest endangerment. By midday, Elias's mother called me personally. Her voice trembled with a blend of regret and frustration. We were planning to invest in Cambria and Elias's business. We cannot move forward after seeing how she treated you. This kind of disrespect, it does not vanish. I thanked her, though I knew it was not thanks she wanted. She wanted reassurance that she was doing the right thing. I could not offer it. Later that afternoon, a niece sent me a short video clip. The camera shook, but the audio was painfully clear. "Get out of the pool," Cambria's voice, sharp and cruel, echoed across the screen. It spread quickly through our Charleston circle, a small circle, but sharp-tongued and fast-moving. For years, I had been the only one who carried the weight of her sharpness. Now, others were finally beginning to see it. 3 days after the hearing, I heard frantic knocking against my door, rapid, uneven, desperate. When I opened it, Cambria stood there. Her makeup was smudged, and her breath shook as if she had run the entire way. "Mom, please," she gasped. "You have to fix this." I stepped aside, letting her into the small living room. She paced in quick, sharp steps, wringing her hands. "The Homeowners Association won't return my calls," she said. "Mr. Callahan said only you can request a review. You need to tell him the complaints were exaggerated." I stayed standing. "I did not file them." I said, "Your neighbors did." She spun toward me. "Then tell them you want them removed." "That isn't how it works." She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "The event registry blacklisted me. They said I'm a liability. Mom, do you know what that does to my reputation?" "You earned that decision," I said. She stared at me, stunned. "And Donna Pruitt keeps telling people I was evicted. Everyone thinks I am irresponsible. I need you to call her. Tell her you changed your mind." "I am not changing my mind." Her composure finally broke. "You are ruining my life." The words burst out of her like a slap. She froze afterward, realizing the weight of what she had said. But it was already hanging in the air between us. I walked to the table and sat, letting my hands rest calmly against the wood. "Cambria," I said, "I'm not ruining your life. I'm only stepping out of the way while your choices land where they belong." Her breath trembled. "I just need you to defend me," she whispered. "I defended you for 30 years, I replied, "even when you made it hard, especially when you made it hard." She covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. I watched her quietly, not with anger, but with a steadiness I had never allowed myself to show her. She stood alone for the first time, not because I pushed her there, but because she had walked so far from me, she no longer knew the way back. And now the consequences she had kept at arm's length were finally standing at her door. Cambria sat on the edge of my sofa, her eyes red and unfocused, as if she were trying to understand a world that no longer bent for her. I stayed standing. It felt important not as a power move, but as a way to hold myself upright after years of folding. "Cambria," I began, "things are going to change." She looked up quickly. "Then you will help me. You will call the Homeowners Association. You will fix the registry issue." "No." My voice stayed even. "I am setting boundaries. Real ones." She blinked as if she had misheard. "Boundaries. Mom, this is not the time." "It is exactly the time," I said. "There will be no more discounted access to the beach house. No more favors disguised as obligations. No more reshaping myself so you feel taller standing next to me." Her lips parted, stunned. "That is not what this is. It has been that for years." I said, And I am done pretending that I am the problem so you can protect the image you want the world to believe. She pushed to her feet. You are being dramatic. You are punishing me. I am choosing myself, I said quietly. For a moment, the room went still. She looked around as if searching for the version of me she had always counted on, the mother who apologized first, who stepped aside, who made excuses for her sharpness. But that woman was gone. Mom, she whispered, please, just this once. This once. I repeated, I am telling you no. She flinched. I walked to the door and held it open. Her eyes filled again. But she did not step forward. I waited, giving her the dignity of choosing how to leave. At last, she moved past me, her shoulders tense, her breath shallow. I watched her walk down the hall before I closed the door slowly, firmly, without hesitation. For the first time in decades, the quiet on the other side belonged entirely to me. The morning after I set my boundaries, a new stack of notifications arrived in my inbox. The Homeowners Association had finalized the last of the violations from the wedding. Vendors from the event registry sent follow-ups confirming Cambria's suspension. And Elias's parents, still shaken by the video circulating around Charleston, informed me that they had withdrawn their remaining investment, nearly $200,000, from the couple's startup project. I read each message without flinching. Then I did the only thing I needed to do. I forwarded every unresolved document to the appropriate departments. No commentary, no explanations, just truth moving to the places it was meant to reach. A few hours later, there was another knock at my door, softer this time. Cambria stood there with the same hollow expression I had seen during the hearing. Mom, she whispered, everything is falling apart. Please, just talk to them. Tell them I am not a bad person. I stepped aside but did not invite her to sit. You want me to fix consequences, I said. Consequences you created. She wrapped her arms around herself. People are turning against me. They are seeing who you have been, I replied. Her voice cracked. Then why are you adding to it? I am begging you. I met her eyes. Steady, in a way I had never allowed myself to be with her. You taught me something at your wedding. People only throw you out of places they think you do not belong. Starting today, I no longer belong in your chaos. She shook her head, stunned, as if hearing a language she never learned to understand. I walked to the door. She did not move. I waited a moment, long enough to give her space, short enough not to reopen old wounds, then closed it gently. That evening, I drove to Folly Beach. The house looked the same as it always had. Warm lights glowing through the windows, the steady rhythm of waves in the distance. I sat on the porch, listening to the tide shift slow, certain, unbothered. Some doors close with forgiveness. This one closed with truth. And truth, this time, belonged to me. If you felt this story, tap like, leave a comment, or subscribe for more.